My grandfather was a lonely man. Even when I lived with him, he remained alone. Alcohol, creates an invisible but impenetrable wall around a person. He drank. Always. That's why the house smelled of stale beer and dampness. I was the only one who visited him after my parents took me to the city. Once a month. I brought him groceries, cleaned, and listened to his eternal, repetitive, drunken sermons on life. But we had this weird, stupid joke. When he was sober, which was, let's say, in the morning, he liked to say, "When I die, Dimka, you'll be sitting here alone, wondering, what's it like beyond the line? Don't worry, I'll give you a sign. I definitely will. I'll throw a stone through the window or whisper in your ear." I laughed. "Only if you don't oversleep from the other world, Grandpa," I replied. It was our shared, dark, cynical amusement. Grandpa died in his bed. Quietly. He died in his sleep, never waking up. The doctors said it was heart failure. A typical end for a long-time drunkard. I organized the funeral myself. I buried him in the ground along with his favorite watch. It seemed right to me. When it was all over, I returned to his dilapidated house to fix it up and sell it. And then it hit me. For the first time, that house didn't smell of alcohol. It smelled of nothing, only of old wood and formaldehyde, which seemed to have soaked into the walls. The loneliness that had always been with Grandpa now became physical, heavy, oppressive. That night, I went to bed in his room. I lay there, peering into the darkness, thinking about his foolish promises. A sign from the other world. "Dimka!" I sat up abruptly. My heart was pounding. The voice was quiet, as if filtered through thick glass. It was my grandfather's voice, with that hoarse rasp I'd known since childhood. "It's nerves," I told myself. "You're tired. You're just hearing the echo of his loneliness." From that moment on, the signs began to come regularly. On the second day, I heard someone whispering my name in the kitchen, where the gurgling sound of his vodka had always drifted. I froze at the threshold. Silence. I walked in. On the table where he always kept a pack of cigarettes, there was a coin. An old Soviet one I'd given him many years ago. I put it in my pocket, and an hour later it was back on the table. On the third day, at night, I felt a presence. It was physical, oppressive, as if someone invisible had sat on the edge of the bed, sagging the old mattress. I couldn't see it, but I knew. It was him, his lonely, melancholy spirit. And it wasn't comforting. It was cold. I started searching. I wanted to find the source. Maybe an old tape recorder? A radio? Had he lost his mind? I knew there was a place in the house where my grandfather always forbade me to go. In his bedroom, behind a heavy oak wardrobe, there was old, peeling wallpaper that always seemed strangely thick to me. I pulled the closet aside. Beneath the wallpaper lay not wall, but plywood. Old plywood nailed down. 10 minutes of crowbar work, and the plywood cracked. The smell that came from the breach wasn't the smell of a cellar or dust. It was the smell of cold, the kind that penetrates to the bone and smells like wet earth and something bitter. There was a gap in the wall, small, narrow, like a pantry door, and beyond it, the black room. It wasn't a pantry. It was tiny, but infinitely black. I shone the flashlight into it. The rays of light sank into absolute blackness, reflecting off nothing. It was like a deep well dug in the wall. There was no dust, no cobwebs, nothing. Just emptiness. And then I heard them. Voices. They were indistinct. Many voices. Women's, men's, children's. Mumbling, whispering, whining. They sounded like every dead person I'd ever known gathered there, quietly complaining. Complaining about the silence. About the cold, about how it was all over, but nothing had begun. I stood rooted to the spot, unable to tear my eyes away from the blackness. The voices grew louder. I felt a shiver run down my spine as one of them uttered my name, "Dimka," clearly but distantly. I shuddered. And then, from the very depths of that black, bottomless room, a hand appeared. It was translucent, ghostly, as if made of smoke and ice. It slowly, unnaturally extended from the doorway, and on its wrist, it was wearing a watch, an old, wide, battered Pobeda watch, the very same one I buried with my grandfather. The hand hung in the air, motionless. I felt an icy, deadly chill radiating from it, making my skin ache. I didn't scream. I was paralyzed by terror, but at the same time by a strange, dark curiosity. I stood there, holding my breath. Slowly, as if reluctantly, my hand began to withdraw back into the darkness. And at that moment, when it was almost gone, my grandfather's voice rang out. This time, not a whisper, but a sound. Deep, heavy, sober. For the first time in many years, I heard it like that. Grandpa's voice. Clear, but with a hopeless melancholy. Don't rush here. Dimka, no one, don't rush. This is neither heaven nor hell. There's nothing here. Only empty rooms and mortal anguish. Everyone here is alone, like I was in life. Only here you can't drink anymore. Or joke. Or find warmth. The voice broke off. The hand disappeared. Immediately, all the other voices fell silent. The room became simply a black void again. A well in the wall. I fell to my knees, shaking all over. I had received my sign. But it wasn't a sign of consolation or an answer. It was a sign of emptiness. Death hadn't revealed any great secrets to my grandfather. It had simply prolonged his loneliness, making it absolute, eternal. He had always been alone, and now he was alone in a black room with 1,000 other equally lonely departed. I didn't sell the house. I boarded up the doorway, covered it with new wallpaper, and pushed the closet back in place. I left the house standing there like a tombstone. I moved to the city. Now I live in a bright, bustling place. But sometimes, when I'm alone, in the silence, I feel a chill and hear a quiet hum. I know that there, beyond the wall, there's an endless, black void, and everyone in it is alone. I was afraid death would take him, but now I know that the worst thing isn't death. The worst thing is receiving that sign from the other world, and realizing that it doesn't console you, but only increases your own fear. I don't drink. I don't joke about death. I just try with all my might not to be lonely, because if you're alone in this life, you'll be alone in the next. And there, beyond the wall, there's nothing but cold and mortal anguish. Sometimes it's better to never receive signs. Never.